Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So today we are delving in to my Natasha Denona collection. I have 8 palettes from Natasha Denona in my collection. You know me, I am a picky lady and I only pick up palettes that I really feel like I will love and enjoy. So 8 is the size of my collection. I have 3 minis, 2 of her larger size palettes and then 3 of her midi size. And I'm going to be ranking them in the order that I love them the most for your viewing pleasure. And hopefully if you're trying to pick up your first Natasha Denona palette or trying to decide if you need a different one or something interests you from my collection, this will help you out a little. So let's get started. Now I am going to be ranking the minis that I own first because it really feels a little unfair to compare these or rank these against the large palettes. It just seems like they obviously are going to fall at the bottom. So I actually found this pretty easy. The one that comes in 8th place at the bottom of the ranking is Mini Retro, and I know this is going to be controversial for some people. I know lots of people love this palette, and don't get me wrong, I like it. I like all of these palettes. There are no palettes in my collection from Natasha Denona that I don't really love. I like this one. The color story is nice, but I just feel like this palette doesn't suit me for some reason. When I use it, like the look I get is always okay, but there's just something about it that on me, whether it's my skin tone or the rest of my makeup that I prefer, I don't know, but it just never quite looks right on me. And I've seen this look glorious on other people. I love the color story. I like that it's something a bit different. And I feel like maybe if it was a more of a mid-size palette from Natasha, like her Glam Bronze size, and there was a bit more for me to work with among these tones, that I would love it more. But as a mini, this is the one that I really rarely reach for this because I know it just doesn't seem to look right on me. It doesn't seem to be like my colours for some reason. Next up in 7th place is Mini Glam. Now this is a beautiful palette. It's very easygoing. It's one that I will quite often travel with if I'm going somewhere for a weekend, going to stay with my sister, going to visit my family or something like that, that it will almost always go in my bag because you just can't really go wrong. It's a little, it's very limited. It literally is one thing really. This shade is a little light for me to use as like a transition, so it's kind of just gives me something to work with. So really there's only kind of one matte in here that I can use like as a crease shade, but it blends out really beautifully and builds really beautifully, so it is a little more versatile. But yeah, it's very simple. It does one basic look. So for that reason it's not the most exciting, but it is certainly a perfect like travel companion. So that's why this is number 7. And number 6, the top mini, is Mini Gold. I just find this like a complete palette. Like for a mini, I find this the most finished of the 3 that I own. This is a complete look for me, and you can actually get a couple of different looks out of this. You can certainly get a more everyday, easier, softer look just using these 2 mattes and the green, because the green actually is quite muted and easy to wear for daytime, and then you can go in with the gold or this shade here and smoke things up a bit for evening. So I do feel like this is the most me shade wise. It really looks beautiful and it really works as a standalone palette that you don't have to add to and you're not missing anything. So for me, this is like the top of the minis and number 6 on the overall ranking. So now we move on to the medium and larger size palette, and I've just ranked these regardless of size in the order that I love them and treasure them the most, because although the Bronze Glam Love palettes are smaller than like the Biebers, they do have a similar number of shades, a similar kind of amount to play with and work with, and color story wise I feel like they kind of, you can compare them is what I'm saying. So I'm gonna. So in 5th place, it is the Bronze palette. Now this seems quite low down. 5th, it doesn't seem great, but I love this palette. I think it's gorgeous. I don't have any issues with it. I love the color story. It's very me, but it is like a pretty basic boring palette. That is me. That's what I love. That's what I like. But there's nothing that super excites me about this palette. And when you compare it to these others, I think it offers me the least like excitement and just something different. It is a very go-to everyday basic palette, which is a really nice quality and has some beautiful, very easy to work with shades that perform beautifully. But yeah, in comparison to the others, there are more that excite me, that, you know, get my blood rushing through my veins, that inspire me a little more than this one. But it's a really lovely palette and I love it. And if this is your tones, you can't really go too wrong. I think if you are afraid of colour and you're looking for your first Natasha Denona palette and you want this price point, this is probably the one I'd recommend, because it is a crowd pleaser and you can't really hate it, because it's just, unless literally you are a colour all the way girl, like, you can't really go wrong with this palette. And in fourth place, it is Love. Now, I love this palette. It's just so pretty. It's very colourful by my standards, but it's my colours. And a lot of these shades are so much softer and more like muted and not as scary and intimidating as they might look. I'm looking at this one here. These shades, Certainly, Trust, and actually Dream as well. They're not as frightening as they might look, or as colourful and scary as they might look. They just work. This whole colour story is like me. It's my type of thing. I love it. Again, this heart, it looks like a really deep red that I'd never use, but it actually is really beautiful and soft and can be really blended out and just used really nicely and softly to complement the other shades. So it's just not really as like scary as it looks in the pan. I have a lot of fun with this palette. It gives me inspiration to do something a bit different and be a bit more colourful, but at the same time the colours are my colours that I know work for me, that suit me, that I enjoy. So it's something a little outside my comfort zone, because it is brighter, more colourful, more going on, but it's like in my comfort zone because these are like my purples, my pinks, my roses. That's like my zone. And in third place, this was tricky. Between second and third was probably like the hardest decision I had to make out of this whole selection process. And honestly, I could probably move these back and forth. It's almost a tie. It's almost a tie. But in third place, it's going to be Metropolis. And this was kind of the palette that started it all for me, started my love affair with Natasha Denona. I don't think, was this my first? I think this might have been my first Natasha Denona palette. Or was it Mini Gold? The minis were never available in the UK for a very long time. They've only recently come to the UK. So this might have been my first Natasha Denona palette. I think it might have been. And what a start. I mean, what a place to start. Again, if you're looking for your first Natasha Denona palette and you're willing to spend this price point, then you can't. You've just got so much to choose from in here, so many options, and it's very, very daytime, nighttime, office. It's just so versatile, this palette. If you want the palette that does it all, this is probably it. And it's just, the formula is amazing. I love delving into this. It's an all-in-one joy and a treat. And it's large, but you know, I hate having giant palettes. This is as large as I'm comfortable with in my collection. This is it. I don't want anything bigger than this. It just is so well thought out. I just love it. I find it really easy to work with. Color combinations just speak for themselves and put themselves together. You really can't go wrong. There's all kinds of treats in here because she has a lot of her creamy matte formula which look different to how they apply, so it's kind of a surprise to the eyes. But every time I use this, I love how my makeup comes out, like no exceptions. It's just an absolute joy. And in second place, which, as I said, it was very, very hard to choose between Metropolis and this one, but this one just, I open it up and I feel happy. I look at it and I feel like excited. I feel excited to do my makeup, and it is the Glam Palette. This is just, it's me. It is me. It's like so unique to me. I know that it doesn't necessarily look very exciting and joyful because it, especially on camera, it just looks like I'm holding a black and white photo up. But honestly, the shades are so much prettier than they look in here. This one looks like an absolute grey, like tombstone grey, and it's pink. Who would have thought that? Look at that, a stunning, beautiful peachy pink. Who knew that that was in there? Same thing as this shade up here. Again, like a gorgeous peachy shimmer. Like, who knew that was in there? It's just a joy. The formula is gorgeous. It's something different. It's got a lot of cools and neutrals in here that I really am drawn to. It's perfect for this time of year. And like I said, I open it and I'm just like, it somehow speaks to me and my heart. It's how I want my makeup to look. It's what I go to bed dreaming about. Sometimes, not every night. I am slightly normal. And therefore, if you know my collection, you will know that the most recent addition to it is the Bieber palette. And it is everything I hoped for and more. This is what I'm wearing today. This is like, again, I keep saying this, I feel like, but this really is me in a palette form. It's boring. It's plain. It's average looking. Ouch. But you see what I'm saying. To look at this, you think, well, okay, it's, you know, an eyeshadow palette. That it is one. But this is like the sexiest, most boring, beautiful, contradictory palette. Because yes, it is your basic palette. It is your everyday, your necessity palette. It's the palette that if you're in a rush, you could just whack on any of these mattes and run out the door and it will look glorious. The quality of these, bar none, like the best of the best. The perfect matte shimmer ratio to me. I love mattes. I do want some shimmers and I like to have different level of depths for shimmers, which is exactly what you've got in here. It's actually got more shimmers than I thought. I think I thought there was only two, which was like Monroe and Shine, which you can obviously see are shimmers. But this is also a shimmer here, this is also a shimmer here, and this is also a shimmer here. So you've actually got more than it perhaps looks like. Oh, and I think this is a shimmer. Is this a shimmer? No, this is like a satin, I guess you would call it. So there's definitely some different textures. It's not everything is just matte and then there's a couple of shimmers. There's definitely some satins and things like that in here. It's just the most beautiful, easy to work with palette. Every colour, every tone is beautifully, perfectly thought out, and it just, the performance of it is a dream. The size of it, the huge mirror, I love using it. It's an absolute joy. It's allowed me, like if I wanted to declutter, which it's kind of hard for me to declutter because sometimes you need palettes for videos, you know, we want to talk about palettes you didn't get on with or rankings, things like that. You kind of need to keep hold of certain palettes, but I could easily declutter like 10 palettes out of my collection and be happy that I've just got that one that does that. Like I could easily declutter my Makeup by Mario mattes because this is a superior formula. I could declutter my Charlotte Tilbury Desert Haze because this is a superior formula, and I prefer the tones in here to that one, but it does the same thing. So I could easily get rid of that one. I could also get rid of my Soft Glam from ABH and my Modern Renaissance from ABH, even though it's literally almost used up, and Sultry from ABH, because this has like literally everything that those palettes have, but this is like the formula. So for that reason, it's like if you want a basics palette that does everyday stuff, that covers all your bases, this is the one. Just pick this up and then don't ever buy another palette that does this, because you don't need a single other one. So there you have it. Those are my Natasha Denona palettes ranked for your viewing pleasure and information. If you have a bit of a Natasha Denona collection as well, please let us know your ranking in the comments down below so we can compare notes, because it's so interesting. Obviously, this is completely personal and subjective as to what your preferences are, your colours, your tones, your skin tone, etc., and what you just love and are drawn to. But I find it so interesting to see people's different preferences for makeup, because we're all so gloriously different, aren't we? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.